round of sealed.
Mystery decks, TBD.
Right.
So Evan Erwin wearing a Star City Games t-shirt. So Evan Erwin, for those of you who don't know, he works at Star City Games, which is the tournament organizer that put together this Grand Prix.
Yeah, former producer of the Magic show.
So Simic Guildgate for Evan.
Yeah, a lot of times we're going to see in the sealed deck format, a lot of players will be embracing a 3-color decks. Still off the power of the Guildgate and just kind of the nature of sealed deck.
So I'm not sure if Evan chose to go first or not. I think sealed is a format where I'm more apt to choose to go second than I would be in other formats.
Yeah, certainly in the past, drawing has been the clear, that's been one of the things that differentiated the good players and the bad players, was the decision to play or draw. I think as creatures have gotten better, there's started to become a real healthy debate going on as to whether or not it's still correct to draw.
So Evan's got is that a Crassus?
It's an elusive cross. So Brian White on the draw makes a turn 2 Daring Skyjack. Evan Erwin defends with an elusive Crossus. That's the 0/4 evolved creature. Yeah, that card is a card I really like in sealed formats. It does a really good job of defense to let you basically stall the game until you get your bombs, and also great offense.
Speaking of bombs, how do you feel about that Guildmage?
Yeah, so Evan follows up with Zamet Guildmage and Greenside Watcher. Zamet Guildmage is pretty strong. Its abilities can become very relevant in sealed, especially where you have lots of time. Its first ability will give all your creatures to enter the battlefield this turn a +1/+1 counter, and it removes a counter to draw a card. And I think any repeatable card advantage engine is very strong in sealed.
He's already got 2 counters on his Crassus, right?
Right.
So, let's see, and he doesn't have enough green and blue in concert with one another to do the ability multiple times,
right.
But he does have a good potential engine there. Is that a
So
Simic Charm?
Yep, he has a Simic Charm, a Scab Clan Mauler, and a Spell Rupture in his hand. So Brian White missed his 4th land, so he's still just sitting on Daring Skyjack. Evan now has the ability to end step draw cards and hold up Spell Rupture right now, I think, which he really can take away at Brian's life total without making too much commitments on this board.
It looked like he was going to make a play.
Yeah, he might if he. Yeah, there's the 2/4 for 4, the Scab Clan Mauler. I think not Mauler. Okay, I believe so. Yeah.
He can untap the Guildgate as well, right? So
right.
that could
so he
actually
has
give
5
him,
mana sources.
But not just that, or he can just attack with everybody.
Right. So he's swinging the team here. Yeah, it's offering the trade of Zamet Guildmage for Skyjack. Brian may have a Smite. He's going to Blood Rush it.
Yeah, I think that's an unnecessary risk. Like you said, there could be a Smite, and I would be very willing to try to grind this game out, given his position.
Yeah, Evan has such a great advantage here by just end-step drawing cards and holding up counter spells. That's probably unnecessary. At the same time, though, I think he feels that because he has Brian on the back foot, he wants to just press all the advantage and damage he can right now.
Sure. I mean, yeah, and we are talking about an opponent who missed his land drop, so maybe he thinks that jumping down his throat is the way to go.
So Brian also, as we've seen, has a 3rd color, and that 3rd color comes to play as he plays a mountain and gets a Firemane Avenger, which is quickly spell ruptured by Evan.
That's a pretty good creature there.
Yeah, you can't really let that card attack.
That's the kind of card we're like, maybe we can build decks around this and construct it.
Right. So, but Evan presses the team again. That'll put Brian down to 8 life.
And then he's still got options, right? Like he can just draw cards end of turn.
He can draw cards. He has a Simic Charm in his hand as well. Brian seems to have a pretty curve-high hand. He plays cast 2 for True Fire Paladin, really one of the power Boros uncommons.
Nothing special going on right here because of his green and white mana open.
Right, and I would say we were talking earlier about while we think this might be the best Boros uncommon in draft, in sealed it's a little weaker because of what you tend to have to do with your mana in sealed.
Naya mana instead of Boros mana. Right. It's just a bear this turn.
It's really that second activation that makes True Fire Paladin become completely impossible to fight in combat. I think Brian, given enough turns, will get double white, double red. But
so what's your attack here? Do you just send the Crassus? I mean, he has the Simic Charm, right? So he can screw around with the Simic Charm if he wants.
Right. Well, I would probably, let's see, on a board like this, I would probably swing the Crassus. I'd rather just defend it. I'd keep the Simic Charm to hexproof the Crassus, and I probably would just try to 4-turn him with it.
I think I would just attack the Crassus as well. Although, he sees that is it possible for him to kill on board if Brian doesn't block?
So you mean if there, yeah, if he swings the whole team and Brian doesn't have the smite, the question you're saying, is there a kill spell?
No. What do you think Evan's thinking? Like maybe he could just go for a kill. He obviously didn't just go for a kill, but
Right. I do like what Evan's done here. So he swung with Greenside Watcher as well, because I think on this board Evan doesn't really value the Greenside Watcher. He'd really love to trade that for the True Fire
Yeah,
Paladin.
for sure. I mean, I don't think Brian can just do nothing, right?
No,
So that's a great trade.
Yeah, that's a great trade. So Evan puts Brian down to 6.
Pretty marginal card versus a relatively powerful card.
Mm-hmm.
And Evan still just got like a half a deep analysis for free here.
Yeah, Brian drew another, it looks like another Xertas wine. His hand seems to be, yeah, double Xertas wine, massive raid, and I think Martial Glory is the last card in his hand. So his mana hurting him both in color and number this game.
I mean, his cards are just not coming out in the correct order. That's
right.
the issue. So what do we got? Ooh,
we're gonna have an end-step Shamble Shark getting a flash and getting a counter, and evolving. Yeah, that does work. The Zamek, I believe that works that way. Zamek Guildmage.
Because it comes into play as a 3?
Possibly. I believe so.
So, well, Evan's pushing with all 3 creatures, and here's a Simic Charm.
Yep, and that'll get the
game
first
1.
game for Evan.
So, Simic Guildmage did less exciting stuff than just Brian missing that 3rd land drop and being a little bit clunky on his mana development.
Yeah, and Zamek Guildmage does trigger, they just already enter with the counter on them. Interestingly enough, what I found with Zamek Guildmage is it's probably the Guildmage that when I play, I find it activates the fewest number of times. You know, as we saw right there, Evan had the option to draw cards with it, but never actually did it.
Having monsters is better than drawing cards
into
more monsters.
It's got this nice thing going where it gives you options to play a lot of different ways. You know, if Evan was behind, you would have had the option to draw cards, but oftentimes just plays like a bear.
I think that's interesting. Who do you think activates the most? The Boros one?
Of the Guildmages, I would say the Gruul Guildmage probably activates the most, because when he's in play, typically activating the Guildmage is better. Making 4/4s is probably better than what you have in your hand. Oh, yeah. So,
what do you want unlimited? A 4/4?
Yeah, I want an endless stream of 4/4s.
Or
that's
you can
great.
Trade a land for like actual cards. In
right,
the game. That's like pretty sweet.
Yeah, you can trade the land for a Xertas line. You can trade it for a 5-drop.
That's really good. I think that's really interesting the way that they templated the various guild mages. The Gruul one is a shaman. The rest of them are like full-fledged wizards. Right?
Yeah, well,
they all went to wizarding school.
It's something was it red and green don't have wizards, right? They have red and green are the shamanistic colors, I believe. And it's like
I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you look at it,
we're just like sick burning this guy.
For mono color cards, red and green only get shamans, whereas blue, white, and black get wizards. So you can justify all the other 4 Guildmages being wizards because they have one of the wizard schools of magic. But there's no excuse for Gruul Guildmage, so he only has to be a shaman.
This guy went to school, like the School of Hard Rocks.
Yeah.
He's just like, there's rocks where he is.
Which was funny because he turns out to probably be, possibly the best Guildmage of them all. Right?
In limited?
I think so.
I think the red-white one's
They're
pretty
both
sweet.
It's definitely between those two.
I think that the Simic one could be powerful, but he's just, I think, tends to be less played in very powerful decks.
He's so mana intensive, and you run into that a lot. Vizcapa Guildmage, powerful, but almost too mana intensive to do much with. He really only becomes great once you get to the 9 mana point, and then you're like, oh, this guy's really good.
Maybe you like grinding games out.
Right. So
maybe your opponent's cooperative and lets you live for 11 turns.
And then, I'm going to turn 9. He's great. So
Evan showing no happiness at this victory.
It's
pensive.
Yeah, it's one for if his plan is for winning the GP, this would be one victory in a long line of victories.
What do you think about this Grand Prix map that they've got our fellows playing on? I find it distasteful because the black stripe in the middle that says Grand Prix is in black, and
it's not the red zone.
Yeah, the red zone is an actual geography in the history of competitive Magic.
Right, and I think we do see that sometimes on coverage where the red zone actually is red.
Yeah, it's often red on Pro Tour. Mm-hmm. This is very distasteful. I don't like change.
So we should be saying that they're pushing creatures into the black zone.
Into the black zone.
They're gonna get a whole new meaning. I do like how everything's kind of delineated where it is, your land box, your exiled library, graveyard.
So what do we have? We have Boros with black, Simic with black. Brian White was certainly playing Naya colors when I last looked, and I believe he had a handful of Blood Rush. I do not believe him to be Boros with black.
Yeah, I don't think we saw many black cards from him.
if Evan is Simic with black, I believe him, but I do not believe in Boros with black.
Yeah. We did see a swamp out of Evan that last game. We didn't actually see the card that he's splashing black for, but looks like Brian has chose to play for game 2.
I wonder if Evan had chosen to play.
You know, and I've started to choose to play in my sealed decks, which is hard for me because I like card advantage an awful lot.
So when you play, when you choose to draw, do you always play 18 lands as well?
It really depends on the format. There's a lot of cards which are pseudo lands, like Prophetic Prism, but I certainly will play like a bigger 17, so to speak. You know, like 17 into Prism, 17 into Prism in a key room. You know, something like that.
So I think one of the advantages in choosing to go second or playing in a tournament where you think that your opponent will be cooperative and allow you to choose to go second or choose to play first themselves is that you can kind of get a small edge by playing only 17 lands. And then still getting the benefit of kind of a more mana-intensive deck.
So Brian actually, it looks like the only thing he kept has double swamp, double mountain, double forest. His first play was a turn 4 Gore Clan Rampager that was spell ruptured by Evan Erwin. Evan made a turn to Greenside Watcher. He doesn't have a gate, but he does have all 3 of his colors online. And Evan will then follow with a 2/4, the Scab Clan Mauler. So would you say it's fair to say with the draw versus play debate, so traditionally people would choose to draw because you could build these decks which tended to be like the very prototypical bombs and removal.
Yep.
And the idea of having an extra card is when you're playing a game of removing creatures, extra cards is just really advantageous. But as creatures have become better and removals become more conditional, is it fair to say that might be one of the reasons we're starting to see people play in sealed?
Well, I mean, I think that's a complicated question. I think
sure.
one of the things that you'd have to answer is which players are you talking about? So I think the average player generally still chooses to play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one thing. I also think that what you're saying in general is true, that the archetypical sealed deck that you want to see is bombs and removal, kind of a progressive card advantage, give me time, I'll give you victory sort of deck. But I think that it's also just in general, increased expectation because you just get to draw into your lands, especially with a 3-color deck with slightly greater amount of consistency.
So listen here, Brian's deck, Brian really starting to get stuck. Evan followed up on a Simic Flux Mage and then an Adaptive Snapjaw. He's now making Leyline Phantom. Brian's been stuck on Triple Mountain, Double Forest, and with no more plays, Evan's able to push basically creatures in off against an opponent that really has no plays.
And he still had all these Simic Charm and other tricks.
Sure, I mean, really, I think Brian, to me, it felt like he had a handful of white cards.
Yeah, it must be.
It looks like he kept